Season 16 of Overwatch 2 introduced hero bans. At the end of the current season, we'll be coming up on half a year of hero bans being in the game, and to be direct about it, the Sombra community has never been more dead. Gunned down in broad daylight, I dare say. I wake up every single morning to 2 different type of push notifications from YouTube on my phone. It's comments from either strangers telling me what new type of terrible person I am for playing a specific hero in a video game, berating me for it, and saying they're happy about her being banned so often, or it's someone saying they can't play Sombra but they live vicariously through me. There's a non-zero chance that me saying this in the opening interrupted someone writing the exact thing I described. If you're the first one, what the hell, man? But this video isn't about that. It's just a symptom of a larger problem, one that Blizzard has just constantly been doubling down on recently for what I can see as no reason. And now, not even Sombra players want to play Sombra anymore. I hate to say it, but this is starting to include me. And I'm getting extremely anxious about the upcoming rework for reasons I'll point out later in the video. But first, we have to be on the same page. The main problem has always stemmed from this. People just haven't been playing Sombra entirely correctly. And I know that sounds weird, but the hero design of Sombra has always been appealing for that exact reason. Not that there's a right or wrong, unlike Cassidy where you miss your shot or you hit it and the feedback is direct, but that Sombra has hundreds of possible actions you can tackle a single scenario with that all work good enough, with only one of them being the best. Sometimes it's hacking someone, sometimes it's dragging an Ana's attention away the moment the Reinhardt charges in. Sometimes it's about baiting a Reinhardt shatter. The absolute most important thing here is that Sombra's value as a DPS is not inherently tied to getting a kill. And I'll show you. In Overwatch 1, there were 3 main iterations of Sombra. The first version of Sombra was simple. Hack locked you out of using E, Shift, and Q. That's it. No damage boost, no visibility through walls, and no cube that did more damage on impact that then did faster damage over time when hit on a hacked target. Translocator was something you threw somewhere, and when pressing the ability again, would teleport you to that place. It had a 15-second window before it would break, but how you used it was entirely up to you. It was not something that resembled an ender pearl, and it did not make you go invisible, because visibility was its own ability. You could use the Translocator with it, but more often this ability was used between fights as a speed boost sprint type ability. The moment a team fight broke out, it was really just about the Translocator and EMP. EMP back then did not do damage. Well, unless you had a shield, or shield HP. Though I did play this version of Sombra quite a bit, I lived in the Caribbean with internet speeds up to a stuttering 100th of a megabyte. Megabit? I don't know the difference. I simply played her for the love of the game and did not watch any guides or tutorials or whatnot. I did not hack health packs, and I placed translocators extremely aggressively. Later on, I found out that almost everyone places their translocator on a health pack and just goes back and forth for full matches at a time. I probably thought that that was just the lamest thing ever and kept doing what at the time was suboptimal gameplay. What I also found out was that everyone hacks everyone. Always. And I mean always. You'd see an Ana throw her sleep dart and her biotic nade, each of which having cooldowns longer than hack would lock you out for, and then still proceed to hack her. Hacking Genji back then still let him wall climb, Lucio would still heal in wall ride, and Pharah could still just hover. But that's just how Sombra was played. I was good enough at the game to know what I was doing was bad, but I didn't care because it's not like I was going to the Overwatch League on my internet speeds. I just like the Translocator that much. So now we're 2 years later. In 2018, Sombra had her first set of major changes. Health packs no longer charged her ultimate, hack now interrupted passive abilities like wall climb, wall ride, Pharah and Mercy's hovering, and Lucio's, everything. Her gun spread was made a little tighter, and the Translocator had a 20-second window instead of 15. What this means is that Sombra is pushed in the direction of being a duelist just a little bit more, with EMPs not being the end goal in her kit. This would mark the first, but definitely not last instance of Blizzard choosing to exchange their utility for lethality. Now keep in mind, this is not inherently a bad thing. If you overshoot on it though, well, we'll get to that later. Regardless, this version was my absolute favorite. I don't even remember the popular characters at the time or what meta was dominant. I remember pouring 300 hours of Sombra in a single season on this version. This got me good, man. Everything afterwards essentially was just me chasing the high that this kit had. And I wasn't alone. This was the period in time where Sombra brought in the most of its enjoyers in a community sense. Before this point, she was just the bad throw pick to stay away from, but now she found her footing. What this this looked like in the game was that you'd place a translocator on a spot where you think the fight is going to happen if you'd engage from a specific angle. One Piece's Future Sight hockey type beat. You wouldn't go in for a specific target, but the moment you're visible, you have to make the most of your engagement. And you could do this because of how dang fast you zoomed while invisible. In a fight, you'd be omnipresent, but not very dangerous. You'd constantly be attacking from different angles over and over again because of the restrictions in her stealth and translocator being on timers, swapping between targets over and over again, having complete control over the people's actions that way. In a video I made years ago, I compared it to the Yellow Flash, also from Naruto. But for those who don't know, this guy invented the ninja version of what is literally just the translocator. His little kunai have markers that let him teleport between them. He himself is not that fast of a guy, but because he can teleport across the field and back constantly in a flash, every character in the show call him the fastest shinobi. But he himself is not that fast. This is where me, having played her incorrectly the entire time till that point, got lucky. I got to see how cool this version of her was the moment it dropped. I didn't need convincing, and I certainly did not need adjusting. Her kit centered not around EMP, not around hack, but the translocator. I mean, hack was still 6 seconds, but you didn't have infinite time to wait for the perfect moment to hack to get maximum value. Hack was more of a vulture type ability, where if the opportunity to hack presented itself, you'd hack. It wasn't the primary thought to have in the same extent it is now. It wasn't the reason you would position where you'd position because of the restrictions placed on translocator and stealth. It was about maximizing your presence and uptime in a fight. I cannot stress this enough. They had something special here. She was what we called at the time bussin'. This lasted for 5 months. That's it. The same amount of time we are currently at with how long it's been since hero bands were added to Overwatch 2 is how long this version of Sombra existed for. My favorite version. In my opinion, the best version. I do not think this version of Sombra was given enough time to be adjusted to properly say it was not a good foundation to build on top of. Small problem though, this was the optimal way to play. What this means is pretty much that people did not do this. Sombra had been in the game for 2 years now, and all everyone did that entire time was place a translocator on a health pack, went in on someone to do 100 damage for ult charge while taking 100 damage and gain some more ult charge by having a hacked health pack heal that up. A dive didn't actually directly result in anything most of the time. Killing someone wasn't a factor, like at all, and that habit persisted. So to those who were doing this style of gameplay, to them, Sombra got nerfed. They did the same thing, just with 50% less ult charge being generated. Effectively, every 15 seconds or so, you'd have a Sombra show up, do 50 damage to one person, then teleport to the nearest health pack till they have EMP. They just do that over and over and over again. Blizzard noted that this was problematic, which leads us to the third and pretty much the final version of Sombra in Overwatch 1. The translocator, which was previously 20 seconds, was now permanent. Stealth, which was previously 6 seconds, was now also permanent. To me, on this day, with it being not even half a year later, the 24th of July 2018 was where we got sent down the dark timeline. I wasn't a content creator at the time, I just had this gut feeling that I, to this day, still adamantly stand by, and now that I'm a content creator, have a solid and consistent track record with my stance regarding. Sombra having her entire kit go from maximizing uptime and presence in a brawl went flipped. By design, it doubled down on people's bad habits. Like, imagine Widowmaker, but everyone that picks up Widowmaker for some reason uses the SMG way more than the sniper scope. And then Blizzard nerfing the sniper scope and buffing the SMG for it. Obviously, this isn't the best analogy, but that's kind of vaguely what happened. The idea is that Blizzard ran on the logic that, well, if the people are doing this anyway, instead of implement mechanisms to insinuate what they're doing is suboptimal. Now it became about waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for hours to hack someone and kill them type loop. If there was a chance you wouldn't live, you just wait more. Any hindrance at all meant that you just wait it out till you can do something. Maybe throw in a go on them in 3, 2, 1 now, so that you can summon a friendly Winston to help you out. Then when you get the kill, teleport back to your handy dandy translocator health pack across the map, and then repeat that over and over and over and over and over again. That was it. The further you strayed from that gameplay loop, the more often you died, and dying is, well, dying is bad. Or is it? I say this because on paper, yeah, right? But at the same time, objectively, doing more things in a single fight for a longer period of time in said fight, using more abilities in said fight, does mean you have a higher potential chance of influencing things to make it a winning fight. But sometimes you die. So the only thing you have to do is be good enough to pass above the minimum threshold of skill to keep yourself alive while dancing around the battlefield. But how would you do that if the kit by design is insinuating you not do that? You don't take those chances. You only have the one translocator, and the choice for which way to use it being safer is like kind of obvious. And see, that is where it went wrong. Why place a translocator around the corner where the enemy that you're chasing would walk to when instead it can be safe on a health pack far away from danger? Why use a translocator to EMP with when instead it can be safe on a health pack far away from danger? Why use it to pressure a soldier away from their positioning on high ground when instead it can be safe on a health pack far away from danger? You get the gist. And that's not just the translocator. Stealth being permanent means that it facilitates you literally doing nothing. You couldn't hack or shoot while invisible. In a very literal way, the more you use stealth, the less you did per game. The goal, even when stealth was on a timer, was to use it as efficiently as humanly possible. The less you use it, the better, but you absolutely had to use it. It was a core element in her kit in giving you the opportunity to, like the yellow flash, in the same fight, re-enter the same engagement from a different angle without the enemy being able to know how. So, since I already know what the first question is going to be, the difference with Tracer is that Tracer stays in the fight in totality unless she entirely leaves. You never actually lose track of her in your mental bird's eye view of the fight. Sombra can, for a split moment, completely erase herself. The better you are, the more often you can pull this off in one fight. You wouldn't know which new angle she translocated to. Like, I get that I'm a complete and absolute nerd for how in-depth I'm going over this Sombra guy here, but this is really important because people keep messing with the recipe while not knowing why the food was good to begin with. So now it just became an invisible nuke. If the Sombra unstealthed, it was too late. They spent the last 30 minutes stalking you and your behavioral patterns and waiting for you to tab out to change your Spotify song, and then they went for you. And that felt BS. And honestly, that is BS. So this here is where me saying permanent invisibility is the problem came from. I know what she's like without it. So how does Blizzard address this? Where stealth facilitates you doing nothing, they double down on the bad habit again. They let you hack while stealth now. They want you using more of it for longer periods of time because now you get to have value in the meanwhile, while waiting for that perfect moment once an hour. And now, because so many people are just waiting all day constantly out of habit, Sombra having a bad win rate, and I mean genuinely the lowest win rate in Overwatch history throughout its lifetime, the moment they do end up doing something, they need it to be worth more. So this is what can only be described as sunk cost fallacy kicked in. They double down. Hack now became mandatory in that it had a damage amplifying mechanic. The entire kit pivoted to instead force the Sombra player to earn the right to be able to achieve damage output after unstealthing. You could now, from out of absolutely nowhere, after theoretically infinite amount of waiting, within a second do more damage than Point Blank Bastion with headshots. Let me tell you, this was pure insanity. Luckily, Blizzard within a week made Sombra completely unplayable. They made her entire kit be based around doing the dive out of stealth, putting all your eggs in one basket to hack someone and burst them down, and then nerfed that exact thing they want Sombra players to do within a week, to the point of setting a new historic low win rate across Overwatch 1 and 2 for 3 seasons. And that was only dethroned because Lifeweaver had a 0.2% lower win rate. In both scenarios, Sombra players get called slurs. Then, rumors of a rework were made. I was asked my opinion and I made videos. I constantly reiterated on my stream that if stealth stays permanent, that this would not be the last rework. Stealth being the center point of her kit is the one inherently flawed idea. It puts too much control and agency in the hands of Sombra. Anything that happens out of nowhere with no consistent way to see coming whatsoever that actually has an impact on you will ever feel fair. So either you unstealth out of nowhere and achieve nothing because you have really weak numbers, or you achieve something and it feels BS. There is no in between. The core of her kit is about putting your eggs in one singular basket. If you don't achieve something, then odds are you just didn't wait long enough for a better opportunity to arise. This is not good gameplay, and this is definitely not the Sombra that Sombra players like me like to play. So time came to pass, as it tends to do, and the sequel to sunk cost fallacy dropped. The sunkest of costists of fallacies. Not only was stealth permanent, it was self-activating after a couple of seconds, and a passive. The solution to the problem, according to Blizzard, was not to knock down the radioactive load-bearing pillar that was stealth to rebuild from that, but double down on the concept that a Sombra player had to earn the right to get a kill out of nowhere without prior warning at any point. Keep in mind, this isn't even something we Sombra players want to begin with. Blizzard invited me and some other content creators, including Fitzy here, and we all said some variation of please don't do this. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but Fitzy didn't play for almost the entirety of Season 1 and 2 of Overwatch 2, and barely touched it since. I don't even blame him. This isn't Sombra. In this version of Sombra, the ability slot that used to be stealth now was home to an ability called Virus. I often joke that this ability essentially serves as a captcha you have to complete beforehand in order to be allowed to do damage. It's a little projectile you throw that at the time did 10 impact damage and 90 damage over time. If the target was hacked, the impact damage would be a whopping 20, and it would speed up the 90 damage over time significantly. Now, I will say something good. With it came the removal of damage boost on hacked targets. To me, this kinda cleverly reintroduced the decision. Do you either A, hack someone out of stealth, or B, virus someone out of stealth? Sacrifice the opportunity to do damage and no utility, or bacon and no bacon? Wait, no. Or the inverse. Independent from everything else, I genuinely still think that conceptually, that's a cool thing to play around. What I don't like, and still to this day I consider extremely disappointing, is that Blizzard was in the mindset of how to keep stealth permanent at all costs. To such an extent that they turned the Translocator into a dang Minecraft Ender Pearl. Stealth was still permanent. The Translocator no longer had any real synergy with stealth, and the more you think about it, has no reason to be what it is. It's like the worst of both worlds for each other. With all this effort spent trying to make permanent stealth work, they inadvertently ship a Theseus themselves from a boat into making a car. But then people started getting better at her, and doing damage out of nowhere became the dominant option. Not doing damage was inherently a worse option because what's a hack to at the very least guaranteed ult charge and at best a free elim. But again, doing all that setup work, waiting for hours to do nothing is inherently bad balance. It has to lead to something. Blizzard's solution, however, wasn't to break that pesky load-bearing pillar that was stealth just yet. The solution instead was just to make it harder and more tedious. Virus did less damage over time, with the exchange being that impact damage was higher. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but the difference went from 20 damage to 70 on hacked targets. Instant. Where before the choice was between hacking someone or doing damage with virus, it became you needing to do both, adding more steps to all chains. You'd be in stealth, wait an hour, hack someone, hit them with a virus, then shoot them for a guaranteed kill. Rinse and repeat. Same formula, same button sequence. All of this just to keep stealth permanent. Permanent stealth that was used to spawn camp. Wait 3 minutes for a Sigma Flux to immediately have it interrupt. To wait for a Widowmaker to scope in after following them for 20 minutes. All the toxic traits you associate with Sombra players. All that pressure, putting so many bandit measures on every part of her kit to make sure that stealth is to be used in specifically that way, only to then, finally, put it on a timer. They reintroduced damage amplification on hacked targets on top of it too. I consider this the final step in the exchange utility for lethality mindset. Sombra is Overwatch's version of Ship of Theseus. All she has is lethality now. Is this Sombra? I don't know. But now we're in the modern era. Perks. Perks conceptually, I absolutely love. I do mean that sincerely. They're great. Slight rough start, but because they were so new, we didn't know how they'd pan out. Season 18 has so many good and cool ones. Like, aside some minor number adjustments here and there and whatever Genji's minor perk is, all of them really are great. Well, having said that, Sombra really got the short end of the stick here too, though. In her original batch of perks, a minor perk decreased the virus cooldown by a couple seconds if it was the reason it killed or broke anything. No one picked this one. The other minor perk is Control Alt Escape, which is the Spider-Man holding back the train perk. I think exemplifies exactly what I want her direction to be taken to. Then there's her old major perks called White Hat and Stack Overflow, which both in their own way actively nerfed Sombra. It was quite common to just not pick a major perk at all. Kyurko got to teleport twice. Sombra had to pick between nerfs. And now, in Season 18, Sombra has a different minor perk, where they again double down on stealth, where you can increase stealth by hacking someone or something. And 2 new major perks. One innocent, that's if someone that's hacked gets virus, it spreads to nearby enemies, which is cool, but But I mean, a kit designed to specifically dive one isolated target to get a perk like this? Conceptually, it's just confusing to me. The other new one lets health packs overheal Sombra to 275 HP if they're hacked, which seems innocent enough, but it's just another chain in the checklist of things you have to do before you're allowed to engage. And if not, it's pushing you to be leashed to a health pack, just like the good old days that nobody liked. Either direction is doubling down on an issue here, both stemming from stealth. Why are we so adamant on making stealth so unbelievably important? 7 perks and not a single one that had anything to do with the translocator whatsoever. Why? I used to entirely chalk this up to nostalgia. Maybe I was just more blissfully ignorant to the times and in the meta or something, but no. Overwatch Classic dropped, ignoring all the Doomfist players for some reason, completely ruining the mode in general. The version of Sombra was the one where she gained health back ult charge, but that part was bugged, so she was just absolutely terrible numbers-wise. Regardless though, damn, the gameplay loop itself was right on the money. If that version could be modernized while keeping that type of stealth translocator loop central, that would be genuinely the best freaking thing ever. Sombra, for most of her lifetime, has been victim to extremely volatile balanced directions. I genuinely have no idea what the developers themselves think is central to Sombra's identity. I know what I want. I know what the Sombra players in my vicinity want. I know the Sombra community right now is 100th the size it used to be because of the changes over time. But I truly have no gauge on what direction they want to push Sombra into next, and for who. We've gotten to the point where they've actively been working on yet another Sombra rework behind the scenes. My editors went to Gamescom and spoke to Aaron while he was there to promote Season 18's launch, and he confirmed they're working on a Sombra rework, but haven't quite found out what to do exactly. Over the course of the last couple months, I've been giving feedback to the developers in private channels as in-depth as I can. This whole video started from one feedback message that I just kept adding commas to and instead turned into a script for a video. I gave feedback regarding the new overheal perk, and that I thought it was the wrong direction for Sombra, and that I am concerned for Sombra's direction. That leashing Sombra in this way is again pushing her in the opposite direction further. Then not long later, Spilo held an interview with one of the developers who had this to say.
I got to play a little bit with this yesterday. I still had to be a little bit on a leash, of course, but it allowed me to do a little bit more effectively when I was using health packs effectively.
Yeah, and that's the idea of it. The decay is at a pretty intentional rate of it's like 5 seconds, I think, before it starts decaying. We don't want Sombra to just be like, I hacked a health pack in my spawn, and then I'm coming out behind your backline with 50 overhealth, right? Like, overhealth is such a valuable thing. You know, Sombra coming out with 275 health is going to be the difference maker in that duel. So, as you said, it's trying to leash Sombra players and leash them to a route, and it's going to reward understanding the map, packing the right health packs, moving around the map, and then being able to get full utility out of this perk.
Makes sense. More of a dualistic perk, maybe isolated targets rather than the virus spread, which is maybe better versus a clump of targets.
Yeah.
I am concerned. I've asked for interviews. I've asked them to say anything at all. Like, I love this character, man. I've been trying to build my entire career around this one hero in this one video game. But I'm seriously starting to get concerned regarding her future. It's already been 5 months of hero bans. It's not like my hopes are sky high here. Please, Blizzard, at the very least, listen to the few Sombra players still crazy enough to stick it through. This part of the video I tacked on after writing the end already, so take it as a post-credit scene. I'm not actually qualified to say directly what should happen, so I'm about to list out what would be my suggestion to try out. So warning, this is my opinion. I'm not a professional game designer, developer, or any of the sort. What I would want is to double down on her uptime in a fight by having stealth be on a timer at a way faster walking speed, 70-80%. Going into stealth would happen really fast, 200 milliseconds or something. But going out of stealth, either from the duration running out or self-interrupting, takes almost a full second, maybe even more, with the caveat being that translocator always instantly de-stealths you to dissuade it from being used on health packs, while also enabling it as a smoke bomb mechanic in the middle of a fight to re-engage at a different angle in that very same fight. As a bonus, it also means that Sombra players that aren't doing it properly are punished by having the enemy team see them go into stealth after translocating sloppily as a larger punishment window of opportunity. From that point on, everything else in her kit, balance-wise, would come down to whatever can facilitate that to be allowed to exist in the game in its current state, like what was done with permanent stealth, with a thumb on the scale for keeping hacks simply to just interrupt abilities and no extra bonus effects. And no, do not make it a skill shot. It needs to be simple. Simple to interrupt, simple to do, with not a large amount of impact, to keep it strictly utility. Making it a skill shot means that it's hard to do, which means that if you're good at it, it'd be hard to interrupt, and also means that it has to have a large amount of impact. Having said everything in this video so far, to really hammer it home, Lip quit her bluntly, publicly, and immediately after her rework. Fitzy is a variety streamer now. Ruben Sargasm is hanging out with VTubers, and Sombra Wizard just quit. All I'm left with now is people that don't play Sombra expressing vindication that Sombra players are being bullied on my own platform. Anyone else is using my platform to be heard about their expressed disappointment in not being able to play Sombra. I have nobody to make videos for. I cannot do my job. If this next rework doesn't actually tangibly improve things for Sombra players as well as people playing against Sombra simultaneously, I am forced to quit her. I want to like her. I want to make her my career. So, no pressure, but don't mess this next rework up.